So the discriminant is equal to b squared minus 4ac, which we know is part of the quadratic formula. It's the inside part here of the quadratic formula. So we're going to plug in our values. So -4 for b, -2 for a, and 6 for c. So when we do that, we get 64. So that is our discriminant. And what that tells us, if we think about it, if this was 64, we would get plus or minus 8 when we square root it. So that tells us we would have 2 solutions. So that's why our answer would be A. We're going to have 2 rational solutions. Number 24. So here, before we start, it has to equal 0, so we're going to subtract 7. And now we're going to plug in our A, our B, and our C. So our discriminant is 32. And what that tells us is if we had the square root of 32, the square root of 32 can be simplified, but the radical will still be in the answer. So we know that we're going to have 2 answers when we solve the quadratic formula. So we're going to have 2 answers, but they're going to have radicals. So that is why the answer is C. We're going to have 2 irrational, that means we're going to have radicals. That's what irrational means. Irrational solutions. Alright, we're going to plug in our A, our B, and our C. So in front of the X there's a 1. And we get -39. So again, the b squared minus 4ac, the discriminant is -39. And if we think about it, if that number in the quadratic formula was -39, we're going to have 2 answers because of the plus or minus that would be in front of it. But because it's a negative, you would have an I in the problem. So that is why our answer would be B. We would have 2 complex, that means imaginary, solutions. Alright, here before we can find the discriminant, we have to have it in standard form, so we're going to simplify here. And then we're going to go ahead and add the 1 over. So now it equals 0. Now we can plug in our A, our B, and our C. So we get 4 minus 4, which is 0. So if we think about it, if in the quadratic formula there was a 0 in the radical, we would have plus or minus 0. Well, if we add 0 to something, or we subtract 0 from something, it's going to be the same thing. So that is why we're going to have D. We're only going to have 1 solution.